Assalamualaikum and good greetings. So today I'll be watching a video titled Apostasy Law in Islam Explained, Unapologetic Answer in capital. Right, so the title is enough to capture my attention. I'm not sure about you, but I guess without further ado, let's watch. Argument for apostasy law in Islam.
When it comes to apostasy, it's based on similarity and similarity between people. So shared.
Okay, before we go forward, I guess this is taken from a longer podcast, I think, between these two individuals, where perhaps they discuss a lot of items, I'm not sure, but this seems to be the portion where they discuss about apostasy law in Islam. So that's why it's straight we go into that topic. So yeah, I'll reverse it a bit.
Based on similarity and similarity between people. So shared values, like being the same religion, because historically Islam was not based on race. Islam did not have ethnic and racial conflict like you'd see in other empires, like the Roman Empire and so forth, because it wasn't racial or ethnic. It was on the basis of similar religion. So this is a source of order and cohesion as well. And those who basically leave the religion, they pose a major threat to that social order and that social cohesion. And this is a very violent act to leave the religion, because all of society is based, that cohesion and order, there's not a top-down structure that is imposing like you see in the West and in the modern nation state. You have society that has this logic of cohesion because of shared similarity in religion. We have the same values, and all of these like family structure, family relations, social structure, communal structure, and so forth at every level depends on a shared religious belief. So if someone opts out of that, it threatens that order. And so there is a clear harm to people in life. Obviously, we can talk about the afterlife and the harm that's caused by someone leaving Islam, but we're just making points that a non-Muslim would agree with. There is tangible harm to society when you have defectors, and every society punishes defectors, often with death, and liberal society is no different. Modern liberal society is no different in punishing defectors. And we see this to this day, but definitely throughout the colonial period, that the liberal colonizers, when they take over certain territories, they punish with death, with imprisonment, anyone who speaks out against the liberal secular order and the colonial powers. We saw this throughout North Africa, in the subcontinent. Millions of Muslims were killed because of their opposition, their ideological opposition to liberalism. Okay, so they defected from the colonial power. The liberal powers justified that, look, we are trying to maintain our power, therefore we have to kill these defectors, because if Muslims start speaking against us, the colonizer, then they're going to, we're the minority, they're going to band together and they're going to overthrow us, they're going to fight jihad against us and expel us. So we cannot allow any dissension and defection. We have to punish things like disrespect to the French symbols or the British symbols, disrespect to British values or French values or Dutch values. We have to punish that very severely, and liberal thinkers justified that, and they said that, such figures like John Stuart Mill, that the savages, you have to limit their freedom of speech. You have to limit them because you're trying to civilize them. You're trying to bring them to a state of civilization, so you have to limit their speech very severely in order to do that. Then once the liberal order is established, then suddenly, and there's no threat to the liberal order, then suddenly you're tolerant of free speech. When I, for example, speak against the U.S. government, like someone might say, no one in a secular country is killed for denouncing the government. No one is killed in the West for denouncing Donald Trump or any of these regimes or presidents. See how much freedom of speech we have? See how much tolerance we have? Well, this is like comparing apples and oranges, because you can't really compare that to apostasy. In these Western states, Donald Trump is not threatened if I call him an idiot. If Donald Trump and the U.S. regime is not threatened by me speaking out against them. If I were to reach a position and more people were thinking about going against the government, then the government would crack down. Then suddenly free speech is no longer allowed. So it's very convenient of the West and of liberal regimes that when their power is not secure, they do not allow free speech. In fact, they kill people, they kill defectors. And then once they've entrenched power, then they'll allow things that don't actually threaten their power. Whereas in Islam, apostasy is a major threat to the individual's happiness, his family's happiness, his community's happiness. So there is a practical benefit to deterring it, and you deter it with severe punishment and capital punishment. So that's the argument.
Okay, so yeah, that's the argument. I think because normally the way I would phrase it would be different, but some of the examples there I think is better to explain to certain people to see from the angle, right? I forgot what is the law, right? Because generally it is assumed to be understood that even if we leave Islam for a moment and we just take about a nation state, right? A defector, someone who suddenly get out, or how to say, defect from the country, from the order, and side with the enemy outside, right? Especially in the state of where two nations at war, for example, right? So it is easy to see how that action becomes or seen as a threat to safety, to peace, etc., right? And is dealt with in a certain way that is not just a normal crime, right? What's the word for that? I forgot the word for those who actually, denounce or defect from, the current order, the current power, and then sided or go with the enemy of the state, right? Treason, right? Treason. So normally, I think when people discuss about apostasy law, it's more on the treason concept, right? So, but it is not to say that it is not part of Islam discussion, because in Islam, unlike many other religion, the issue of the state, the issue of politics, etc., in terms of the principles, it is guided by revelation, right? It's not totally religion is purely about rituals, because anyone who think Islam in that scope, right? Islam is a religion of rituals, just like any other religion. So how come people who want to live these rituals, etc., is suddenly punished heavily, right? So in that scope, of course, it's like it will appear to be something that is so unlogically severe for no reason at all, right? It's human, how to say, meaning people can choose what they want to believe and act in terms of rituals, etc. But the concept of the apostasy law, when we go to the text, right, or when we go to the specific criminal act against those who murtad, right, the word riddah, is it? So it is a different discussion. So there are several things that have to be understood as the underlying concept. I think he did explain quite well, I think, I'm not sure if anyone can appreciate all the element that is being explained. And of course, we are not nearly half of the video, so I guess there will be some rebuttal or something.
Okay. To finalize this point, I think we should be wrapping up soon. We haven't clarified apostasy fully, so you have basically justified how apostasy serves for the preservation of Islamic society, and how defecting from Islamic society harms people, harms relationships, harms the relationship between me and my parents, for example. You have given examples of how in Western society thought that goes strictly against the system has been punished in history, although we don't see that opposing. I mean, for example, you argue for a very strict Islamic points and an Islamic government, Islamic traditionalism, whereas you live in America. That should be by that logic, that should be the most opposing, the most problematic opinion, the most problematic political position that you can have. Yet you are not in any trouble, and you will most likely not ever be in any trouble throughout the rest of your life. Although you are in America, which is a liberal society, and you argue completely against it and completely for Islamic law, which nobody wants and nobody likes, and society is ruled by the majority of what society wants.
His reaction to, like, did I go did I make that argument in terms of, I think that's a basic assumption about Muslim, in terms of they really want to denounce whatever order or government currently in place, right? Well, to be fair to the outsiders, because they see some of the things that happen in certain places, they generalize it. So to be fair, it is because of the action of some Muslim anyway.
So I still don't get how you could possibly give these examples or go out of these examples and justify why Islam would impose people to forcibly stay loyal to its system, even when people don't want to stay loyal, even when people want to go out of it. How is that justified? How would God want that? How is that good for society?
I think he did make the argument that no one will be punished or clamped down in a, for example, society or country like the US if you just voice out certain things. I think he made that example earlier. Until and unless you reach a certain point where you are about to mobilize or something, or you have reached a certain level of influence where you can mobilize people to disrupt peace or whatever, then it will be clamped down, and freedom of speech no longer is a thing then for you, for that specific case, right? I think he did mention that point, which, yeah, because that's the idea when you consider the classical example of murtad, of apostasy in Islam, right? Why it is dealt in a certain way, because it's not just purely a person do not believe anymore and do not want to perform a certain act. It's more on it create a wave that will disrupt, the power structure, even after the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam wafat, right? The death of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where those who do not want to comply anymore with basic, how to say, zakat is like a basic community obligation, right? So for those who visibly, having that motion, and then it shape a wave that if you do not contain it, so okay, we will hear the response.
I mean, I'd just be reiterating the points. So Islam has reasons for its values and the laws and the punishments and all of Islamic ethics, and the claim is that that system is going to maximize human happiness. I can make this argument, and I've cited all kinds of reasons and studies So on that basis that it does that, anything that will undermine that system of family, that system of community, if you start saying that no, Islam's teaching on sexuality is actually false, and we have to start practicing adultery and fornication and homosexuality, if someone comes and does that, that causes massive amounts of damage and harm, because of families start breaking down, right? Families start breaking down, it causes conflict.
Let's come to converting to Christianity, for example. Someone wants to, or an entire family wants to convert to Christianity from Islam, or wants to convert to Buddhism from Islam, for example. They're not advocating for sexual perversion or deviance or anything like that. They simply want to convert to Christianity and live a peaceful life, or convert to Buddhism and live a very peaceful life. What is wrong with that?
Well, there's many other aspects to social cohesion that we haven't really talked about. So one part of social cohesion is similarity in dress, similarity in practice, like coming to a central place of worship and bowing together in the same ritual actually has a great deal of effect on people's willingness to be altruistic, to help each other, to support each other, to not harm each other. That practice by itself, which is a part of Islam, like congregational prayer. So all of society doing that, dressing is in a certain way, speaking in a certain way, your language, right? The language that you use to communicate. Like Muslims, even though they speak all the languages of the world, we have shared vocabulary in Arabic, because Arabic is the language of revelation. So that creates bonds and a type of connection and unity that makes the Muslim community strong. And it protects the Muslim community from external threats, because you have this kind of in-group sense of loyalty, and that protects that community and that society from external threats. If someone within that community starts saying, no, I'm not Muslim anymore, it disrupts all of that cohesion, and it also makes the group less unified. There's less in-group unity, and that makes it more vulnerable to existential threats from the outside. So these are all practical reasons that I'm giving you. I mean, the world that we live in today is based on complete coercion and force. There's an interesting quote from a Yale legal scholar, and he says that every law is an opportunity for violence. Every law that is legislated is an opportunity for violence. Why? Because if someone violates the law, like give the parking ticket example, you get a parking ticket, you don't pay it, then the government can put a lien on your house, foreclose your house, and kick you out. If you refuse to leave your property, the sheriff can come and arrest you. If you refuse arrest, then he is licensed to shoot you and kill you, to use deadly force. And so every law has this threat of deadly force. And Western countries have the most laws of any civilization in history. Like you could, even if you spent your whole life trying to study Western law, you couldn't cover every subfield of the legal system. So this is constant control and imposition and violence. And this is why you can have people who are completely different in their religion who are able to live peacefully with each other, because the state is controlling everything and making sure that violence doesn't erupt. But if you don't have that Leviathan state, that kind of imposition dictating every moment of your life, surveilling every moment of your life as currently exists in the West and in the world as a whole, then what other kinds of ways can you maintain social order? And in those circumstances, having similarity in religious belief is very important for maintaining that.
Okay, so surely enough, like the title suggests, that is an unapologetic answer. However, I do personally think that it doesn't go into the technical aspect of implementation, right? Because the way the question is asked is by accepting the premise that it is enforced across the board for any type of people leaving Islam. So that is the logical meaning, from his angle. That's all the logical explanation, that someone who is not a Muslim but living is in a nation state nowadays, or any civilized society nowadays, can appreciate and try to understand. I think that's the angle that he take for the answers just now, right? However, there's because to discuss this kind of topic in depth, there's a lot more nuance to it, obviously, right? In terms of the technicalities of implementation, right? Is it actually implemented across the board of any type of people do not believe in, the basic belief of Islam and want to belong to other religion, etc.? Is it really, meaning the law itself, to the letter of the law of apostasy law, murtad, does it applies to that case, right? So those case also, I think, if those aspect also is understood, then we can see the context more clear, in the sense of what issues which is addressed in the early part of this video is being tackled by the law, right? It's not it's not really, when we say la ikraha fid din, right? Of course, that okay, when we say la ikraha fid din, or there's no compulsion in religion, right? Normally we translate it as such. Normally it is just phrase it that way, and without continuing to the remaining of the verse of the ayah, right? La ikraha fid din, qad tabayyana ar-rushd min al-ghayy. Okay, faman yakfur bit-taghut wa yu'min billah, towards the end, right? So it is actually not just some statement hanging in the air, simply just say there's no compulsion in religion. It does have the context of qad tabayyana ar-rushd min al-ghayy, meaning that for anyone who have never been given the chance to understand, the opportunity to understand how and why this is the truth, that comes first before la ikraha fid din, basically, in the context, right? Meaning that you cannot force anyone, because in the end he will decide for himself, and he will, because to the end of the verse, he will have to go through the repercussion in the hereafter, regardless of his option, right? If he choose to yakfur bit-taghut, to denounce taghut, wa yu'min billah, and iman to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, right? Put their belief on Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, then he will be rewarded accordingly, etc., right? So that's the first and foremost. Second is in terms of then who is already a Muslim when he go out, because I think it should be already established in all the Islamic society and government and state, from the very first one in Medina, right? It does not force everyone to become Muslim, right? Da'wah is given. Everyone should be given the opportunity to choose the truth after they have been provided with the clear proof that this is undoubtedly the truth. Then you choose, right? So normally speaking, we can see that human, when they see the truth, they prefer to hold on to the truth, except if they have whatever else agenda, right? Any other agenda, I don't know why they want to still choose something else rather than accepting the truth, right? So that the whole concept actually should be, of course, primarily I'm addressing the Muslim here, right? Because to explain all of this to a non-Muslim, it would take a longer discussion, because we have to lay out the foundation after foundation before we reach to the concept of, so in this specific case, why is it dealt in this way, after we have understood the foundation before that, right? Otherwise, without this foundation, you just straightway say, with the assumption, oh, this apostasy law means that you restrict one's choice to believe in blah blah blah, right? So that kind of statement is founded on a certain assumption that deviate so much deviation, or highly deviated from the foundation of what should be understood first, right? Before we go to this kind of laws, right? Criminal law. All right, so yeah, it would take a longer discussion. I'm not sure how many of you are interested in this kind of discussion. If we are to have a casual discussion and trying to understand each other in topics like this, like sensitive and topics that require a longer discussion for you to understand each and every element of what makes that part of a bigger beautiful system, right? So that is the thing as well. All right, Islam presents itself as a complete system. It's not like every single law is on its own in isolation and suddenly it comes into picture, right? It's part of the bigger picture, the bigger system. So if you do not understand this whole thing and then suddenly you just want to scrutinize one thing out of context, you will not have the meeting point, right? Unfortunately. So for anyone who is interested in any sort of discussion like that, please do mention. I would love to have like a live discussion, 1-to-1, 1-to-2, whatever, as long as it is to discuss, to understand, right? I'm not interested in debate, right? Because many people before this commented, why don't, if you don't just debate him, etc. Because debate will rarely go to the point, because there's a lack of intention to understand from the beginning, normally speaking, because the intention tend to be to win the argument, to win the debate. Hence I'm not interested in that. But anyway, so that is the video. Yep, well, I guess that's the end of this one. Thank you for watching. See you next time.